Hello, I hope you're doing great. Today we are going to see a small example on how to create a book translation application using Blazor WebAssembly with .NET Core hosted API. The reason we are going to use a hosted API is because we are going to invoke an external API that requires a secret key to be sent to it in order to work, and we do not want that secret key exposed on our client side. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and invite more people to subscribe. Okay, so here is the application, and we have the default layout for a Blazor WebAssembly application with a .NET Core hosted API. So we have the client side, we have the API, and we have the server, the shared project. Client side, server, API, and the shared project. In the shared project, we created a model that we are going to reutilize through our whole application, so we don't have to duplicate code, right? Remember that one of the advantages of Blazor, and actually one of the purposes of Blazor, is that you can reutilize your .NET code in your frontend, right? And as much code as you can reutilize, the less duplicated code that you will have, and the faster that you will be able to code high quality applications. Okay, so here we have the model, right? And we have the information or the data annotations is going to be these fields. All of these fields are going to be required, and this field needs to be a URL or needs to be in a valid URL format, right? Then we have our server project, and in our server project we have the services folder and this class. This class receives everything that it needs injected, right? And it has the translated from URL. The translate from URL method receives the model, which is the type that we saw before, and the cancellation token, right? Then it configures this request URL, which is the external URL. That is actually a URL. It is this. You will find this API in the video description, and you will actually need to subscribe to it to use the key that you will get after you subscribe in order to be able to test yourself. Okay, so we configure the request URL, we configure the parameters that it needs, right? And the source file URL needs to be URL encoded, right? So you see that here we assign the result of the HTTP utility.url encode using the model source file URL, right? Then we create a string content variable where we pass the serialized JSON for the actual model we are receiving in here. Then we configure our API request, our external API request authentication. So we add the host, the key and the host into the headers, and we get it from the configuration, right? That configuration needs to be either on your app settings.json or on your secrets.json file. In my case, I already have it on my secrets.json, right? Then we create a HTTP request message, right? It's going to be a post using this request URL, and we are going to send this content. Then you invoke the send async method from the HTTP client using the message variable as a parameter, right? Then you will get the response. If the response is not successful, meaning if there is an error, we get the error message and we just throw an exception with that, right? If something else happens, we will catch an exception here, and actually this one will throw an exception, this will catch it, this will log it, and then the original exception will be rethrown. Then we have in the controllers, we have this book translation controller, right? And this is a normal API controller. Receives what it needs to receive, the logger and the translation service, right? The logger is actually not being used in here, but we could, right? Then we have the translate method, right, which has the HTTP post, and we use the action like this, so the endpoint is actually named same as the method. We receive the model, and then the only thing that this method does is invoke the translate from URL method from the service, and this returns okay if everything succeeded. Then you see that in our startup.cs we have the add HTTP client services.http client to enable the HTTP client injection at HTTP factory. One of the things that this allows us is to receive the injected HTTP client in our constructors. Then we get the configuration, right? And we add it as a singleton, and then we add a scope definition, or we actually add the service to this scope, right? Or we will inject this service with a scope lifetime, better said. Okay. Then in our client side, you see that we have index.razor. This has a container with all of the fields that we need, right? We have indicator. This is basically a spinner, a couple of spinners. We have the validators. We have the error message, and we have the success message. And then we have all of the fields that we need to send to our internal API. Then if it is not loading, we show the button, otherwise we hide the button. We are using it like this, so the button totally disappears from the HTML and is not accessible by modifying a CSS property. So this actually removes it from the HTML while the application is loading something, right? You see that this form actually has this. So when you submit, this will invoke this method. And this method basically sets the is loading to true while it's trying to do a request, cleans all of the messages, right? Uses the state has changed if some UI element changed because we are on a sync method. Then it invokes our internal API, right? We get the response, right? We post this as JSON, right? We get the response. If everything succeeded, we set the success message. If something failed, we set the error message, right? If something failed in another part, we still set the error message. We stop or we set the loading to false, so the spinners stop and disappear. And then we invoke the state has changed again. And that's basically it. So we run the application. We get a test file. The test file needs to be a Word file. Actually, it needs to be a docx file. It's an open XML Word file, right? And the way that this will work is you put your URL, you set how you want to translate it, you set the email address where the translation is going to be sent, you hit the translate, right? This will invoke the API. See that it invoked our internal API, and then it actually invoked the here you see the rapid API that is being invoked. You see with the source file URL that we actually send it, right? This will actually take a while. So the API that we are using, it actually takes the file and it splits them in chunks, right? And each chunk is going to be translated, right? So it has to do a lot of requests. So the longer the or the bigger the file you are sending, the longer that it will take to be translated, right? So you already saw the operation succeeded, right? And the file is already translated and on your inbox, right? Actually, it may not be on your inbox. There are cases, for example, when you are sending email to Gmail, uh, Gmail has a history of many emails taking a long time to be received from a lot of different providers, right? So if you are sending the results to your um, email account, it may take from 5 to 10 minutes uh, to be displayed on your email inbox, right? So take that into consideration, right? Um, but you should receive the emails in a couple of minutes after you get the operation succeeded. Okay, so remember, if you want to use the APIs we are using, you need to subscribe to the PTI Rapid API, to the PTI Books Translation Analysis by PTI. Under the Rapid API, we will put that link in the video description, right? You will also need to download the application, which is going to be hosted on GitHub, and the link is going to be in the video description. So that's everything for now. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, hit the thumbs up, like, share the videos, and invite more people so we can keep making more free videos for you. Remember, we do trainings on .NET, Azure, and Unity 3D. Thank you very much and have a great day.